So I'm always talking to coaches and professionals about launching some kind of online program, whether it be a membership or some sort of virtual or hybrid model. And it sounds great in theory, right? Because we probably have more time for ourselves. We can maybe travel a little bit while still working, and obviously we can make a lot more money. The problem is that a lot of people are going into it without a plan. And let me tell you, by trying to launch a program without a very thorough plan is like trying to build a house without a foundation. It's just not going to work. It's going to collapse. You're going to become discouraged and probably waste a lot of time, energy, and effort and money in the process. But not anymore. In this video, I'm going to go over the pre-launch checklist to help you get your first online program off to a successful launch. Hey, and welcome to the channel. Quick introduction. My name is Jaron Baruman. I coach business and marketing and launch strategy for health and wellness professionals. I was a coach. I was a health educator for almost 20 years before I moved exclusively over into business and marketing. And let me tell you, there are very few things that I have not done. I have done the online programs, the memberships, the virtual hybrid models, been on Trainerize program, doing all these different things. There is rarely something that someone's going to throw at me that I haven't tried to take on. Okay, and I say that because I've had some huge successes. I have also had a lot of failures, and in this video, I want to save you from doing all of that. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, the first mistake that most people make is that they think that doing a launch, okay, so launching their wellness program is just as simple as just doing the thing, okay? And that is rarely the case, okay? Unless you already have some sort of massive audience, in which case, sure, you can launch and sure, you will make some money. But with a plan, you will exponentially increase your chances of success, the chances of conversions, the chances of developing your customer LTV. That means lifetime value. That means developing a relationship with your audience so that way you can continue to sell them things that you make in the future. Now, let's go ahead and get into your first step, which is about building an audience early. Now, this right here is definitely one of the biggest mistakes that I've made. So I primarily worked in the prehabilitative space. So one of the big programs that I created was about pain management. And with my knowledge of paid ads, I thought I had everything in the bag. And I did to some degree. I made some sales, but had I gone through the process of building my audience early, and this was about 7 years ago, had I gone through the process of building my audience early, that whole process I could have saved a lot more money. I would have increased my chances of conversions because people would have known me more. I would have built an audience. So this is one of the first most crucial steps that I could probably encourage you to do, which is to spend the time building an audience early, especially if you don't know what you're selling yet. I know that might seem counterintuitive, but let's say this is something that you're thinking about getting into. Start reflecting on what I call your acquisition model. Where are you getting in front of audiences? How are you getting in front of eyes? Okay, and maybe this is something as simple as building your social media following. Maybe, and I would say probably a little bit better up the hierarchy, is getting people on an email list. And I don't want to get into all the nuanced ways to do that, but ultimately this is just about getting people into your stratosphere. Okay, so step one is to build an audience early. So step two is about crafting a very clear and oftentimes simple offer. Okay, that is, what is it that you say you're going to do for somebody? The more concise and clear that you are, the more somebody can feel like, oh, this is for me. The clearer your messaging can be. And again, I'm really speaking to a big problem for a lot of health and wellness professionals, is because we're trying to tackle too much too soon. We're trying to take our years, our vast wealth of knowledge, and put it all into a singular program. And this is a pitfall. This is a mistake. Okay, try and be very specific about what your offer is. And again, let's just back up a little bit. Let's say you do have a very robust offering. You have to be very clear about what it's doing for someone.
What would you say you do here?
And that might just be as simple as asking your audience, what problem does this solve? Who does it solve it for? And once you really hone in and understand that, you can make your messaging consistent everywhere. So step 3 is going to follow on the coattails of building an audience early. And really what this means is that you are building buzz. Okay? You're building buzz. And this might just be something as simple as an announcement email, announcement post, like, hey, I'm working on something. Hopefully a little bit more direct than just like some text. Okay, maybe showing some of that behind the scenes action. If this is something that you've been already doing for people, like let's say you're scaling a service of yours that you've been doing for some amount of time. I don't want to say short or long amount of time. If you have this thing that works and you've been doing it, maybe show some clips of you working with individuals and really, combining that with this announcement, this anticipation, because it's really this buildup. It's the whole reason why movies have trailers, okay, and previews beforehand. They're building the anticipation. Again, we don't have, multi-million-dollar budgets, right? But what we do have is the power of our social media or our email list. So there are opportunities to build anticipation while also providing value, saying, hey, I'm doing this I'm solving this particular problem, and it's going to be in this particular program. I'm working on something big. So we're providing value with that. So again, step 3 is really about building buzz early. Now, step 4 alludes to something I was talking about earlier, and this has to do with setting up an email sequence. Okay, now, again, ideally these people are on your email list, and one of the reasons why I think that's better than just a social media following. I don't want to say not have a social media following. It's fantastic, awesome. We want to combine the two. Okay, but with social media, oftentimes people are not seeing your content, or it's very unpredictable. It's really up to the algorithm about whether or not your audience, who might be highly invested in you, whether or not they're actually going to see what it is that you're putting out. But if you were to go through some sort of a process of maybe giving them like a lead magnet or a free resource, a workshop, masterclass, something that they can get onto your email list with, then you can set up a sequence. Okay, and again, I don't want to get too nuanced with this because this is more for future videos, but maybe it's a 3 email sequence, a 5 email sequence, 7 email sequence, where you're spreading stuff out over some sort of a pre-launch period. But ultimately, this is where you can provide value, of course, value subjective, but social proof. Okay, talk about the program while also continuously giving value. This is about building relationship. Okay, so anyways, this step is all about setting up, planning out your connection points here. Okay, and the best way to do that is with an email sequence. So step 5 is very simply having a sales page. Okay, prepare your sales page, just kind of like your sales pitch. And this is very simple to do. Most professionals have a website as it is, whether it's through Wix, Squarespace, a variety of other platforms, and you just have a separate page where you have maybe your headline about your program, your subheadline about what it does. I like to encourage people to have some sort of a short video, usually between 2 and 3 minutes, where they're talking about the program a little bit more in depth, and then we're getting into some of the bullet points about the program and who the program is for. And if you don't have a website, you don't know how to set this up, there are services like Canva. I love Canva. You can set up a really nice website or sales page within Canva. It has its own dedicated domain. I don't want to get into nuances of that, but you are welcome to ask questions, of course, in the comments. But Canva is a very simple thing to have a sales page as well. And maybe you just don't have a very robust website yet, and that's all good. Canva is a fantastic alternative to set something like this up. Okay, step 6 is kind of funny because it's actually kind of difficult to do, especially if it's your first launch. But again, I'm going to kind of prepare you here, okay? Step 6 is about setting a date and sticking to it, okay? Especially if your launch is maybe limited to a certain window of enrollment. When you have a window of enrollment, you create scarcity, and people unconsciously are triggered to buy this thing, okay, or feel compelled to at least check it out or be curious about it. That's a little bit different than something which is called evergreen enrollment, where you're launching a program, but people can enroll in it anytime. I don't want to say one is better than the other. It's very dependent on your relationship with your audience, of course, what you're offering and whatnot. But nonetheless, you want to stick to the date. Now, the reason why this can also be really hard is because if it's your first launch, you might not be getting the interest that you want. And I don't even know what that looks like. I just talk to a lot of people that have big expectations for what their first launch could or would look like. And sometimes it's really solid. Sometimes people feel really good about those numbers, and sometimes they don't. But ultimately, wherever you start at, hey, you're going to refine, you're going to reiterate whatever your program is, and you're going to find new people. I mean, in theory, your program could or should be growing, either at scale or just a wait list. Okay, but ultimately, when it comes to that setting a launch date and sticking to it, this is about creating scarcity. And if you do it right, if you really stick to it, And then you show the process, the post process, meaning like people enrolling, and you're showing your interactions with your new members, your new clients, or whatnot. That builds the anticipation right then and there for your next launch. Okay, but it's so much of it has to do with sticking to your launch date and not just like continuously extending things. I mean, if you have to extend a window, like genuinely extend it, then okay. But this is an area where people have trouble with as well. Now that right there is your pre-launch checklist. It's not too complicated. It's not rocket science per se, but there is work that has to be done beforehand. All the work beforehand, that's the ugly stuff. That's the stuff that most people don't want to do. And it is the reason why most people are not launching online programs. But even when it comes back to step one, which is to build an audience early, there are so many benefits and potential outcomes that you can have just by starting at that point. And once you're doing that and you have this idea, this thing that you want to launch, follow the rest of the checklist. If you do want to make sure that you're fully prepared, check the description below. I've included my pre-launch checklist. It's a free downloadable resource that you can go through to have the best and most successful launch that you could possibly imagine. Hey, hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you found some value and some actionable, tangible steps that you can move forward with for your online program. Once again, my name is Jeremy Berumen. I'll see you on the next one.